Hey everyone, welcome to the first edition of Primetime News, where I'm going to go over the wildest and craziest and most interesting and important news in the world of reselling that happened over this past week. Now, we've got some important eBay information to get to, some scam information you need to be aware about, and we also have some good be on the lookout information worked into these news stories. But we are going to start off with a story from Yahoo News about well-off parents who are upset at having to fight figuratively, not really literally, against resellers trying to get those really hard to find desirable Christmas gifts for their kids. And there's two really interesting quotes here from this article that I wanted to read to you from one of the parents. And this is from Krista Kirkpatrick of Rochester Hills, who says, "I've been indirectly competing with grown ass men for Spidey and his amazing friends toys. Her 3-year-old daughter wants the set of 3-inch Marvel figurines, which normally retails for $20. The set is now selling for upwards of $130 on eBay and Facebook Marketplace." And then she goes on to say, "Every time I tried to buy the damn toys, they were sold out because adults are hoarding them and reselling them for 5 times their value. They know parents and collectors will buy. It's crazy. They're made for preschoolers." Okay. Now, this is me talking now. My view on this is that whether or not they're made for preschoolers is beyond relevant. What the point is actually that's important is what you just said, which is that parents and collectors will buy it. That's the key. As long as parents and collectors are going to pay 5 times the suggested retail price for the item, of course resellers are going to go out and buy them and flip them. And if you look here, on eBay, you could see here there's plenty of people who are spending over $100, close to $100 for Spidey and his amazing friends toys. And that's especially the case now with the Spider-Man movie that just came out. We're in the midst of the pandemic with significant supply chain restrictions. So that's just further increasing the demand. So in a free marketplace, that's just normal. That kind of thing is going to happen. So what are parents trying to do to kind of combat the resellers? Well, it's interesting, and is a good be on the lookout item as well. This Gabby's Dollhouse toy. This was one of the most popular and sought after toys this holiday season. So you could see it right here. And you could see here that it's sold recently for over $210. 54 bids on auction. In fact, it's $44 shipping tacked onto that. So parents actually came together and they created these groups. This is just one example. Gabby's Dollhouse search. Now, so that's a parent formed group to try to get information ahead of the resellers. But, as we know in the reselling community, resellers have their own groups, particularly in the subgroup of the retail arbitrage community. So if you want to get some good information on retail arbitrage, go check out my friend Tommy Buffalo Picker, check out Richie Hustles. There's a whole bunch of people who go out and do this sort of stuff. Now, let me just circle back because history is an interesting thing that puts stuff in perspective. So let's go back to the 1980s. And in the 1980s, what was the most sought after toy right there? Yeah, there we go. The Cabbage Patch Dolls, right? Now, remember, this is 1983, early 80s. There's no eBay, there's no Amazon, there's no Mercari, there's no reselling like we know it today online. There's not even an online. Okay, so it says here, report. This is just what parents were doing. So we're taking the reselling community out of the equation. Reports of violence emerged from all over the country. At a store in Pennsylvania, a shopkeeper had to stave off an angry mob of 1,000 strong with a baseball bat after they unleashed pandemonium in his place of business. There were stories of Christmas shoppers coming to blows. Some people were trampled in violent outbreaks, including a 75-year-old man and a pregnant woman. That sounds a lot worse than anything that's going on between parents and resellers going on today. Like, I can understand parents getting upset if they came in looking for a toy and they saw that a reseller just came in and just wiped the whole entire shelf clean. I get that. I could understand that as a parent. I could see that, and that, that does cause issues. So I get it. But unless the store puts limits on the purchases, which is what they should do in those kind of situations to prevent that, then, technically, their reseller's not breaking the rules. So then it gets into, should the reseller do that? Like, let me know your comments down below, because I know there are some resellers who take the position that they won't do that with kids' toys. Like, they don't want to be involved in that at all. So it is a controversial area in the reselling community, and I definitely want to get your comments down below. But let me bring back to one other point before we move on to the next story here. When parents weren't beating the snot out of each other, they bribed store clerks or radio stations that were giving the dolls away as prizes. Other desperate adults, this is so important. Other desperate adults sought out the addresses of people who managed to successfully obtain one of the dolls with the aim of showing up at their house and doing God knows what. The reason I say that's so important is that if there if there is no reselling community in place like there is now, which does offer convenience for people, yeah, they have to pay up for it, but they don't have to leave their house and worried about having to get trampled or come to blows with someone in a store. The parents were going to go and seek out someone to resell it to them anyway for a crazy price. So that's why I say, really, putting the blame here on the reselling community is really misplaced when you look at it in the framework of history and just where we're at now in society. Free marketplace, supply disruptions, and significant demand on some of these things. And so that brings me to the next story, which has to do with Starbucks tumblers. And it's a great be on the lookout item, especially if you're new into reselling and you don't know about this. But Starbucks tumblers could go for absolutely crazy prices. And part of the reason for that, you see me here at the Starbucks website, is that they don't have an online store anymore where you could buy the tumblers or other Starbucks merchandise except for gift cards. They got away with that store in 2017. So that has just been another thing to further increase the demand for some of these products. And now you're stuck. You have to go to the store. And you could see here why resellers are going to try to find these types of items. So it's not just toys. It also is, Starbucks tumblers, because some of them could sell for over, $300. I mean, look at that. I mean, that's not a one-off. I mean, that's a consistent thing that these tumblers could go for that type of price. So this particular story, it's another one from Yahoo News, is talking about the workers at Starbucks who are upset over resellers coming in and, in their words, acting rudely towards other customers, acting rudely towards them, trying what they described as like underhanded kind of techniques to try to get the tumblers ahead of time. So, my take on this is, obviously, try not to be rude to people who are going to be your sources, because my take on, I don't care who you're dealing with. If you're dealing with a manager at Target or at Walmart or at Starbucks, or if you're dealing with an estate sale dealer, make that relationship as good as possible so that they want to cut you some special deals here and there. There's nothing wrong with that if you could establish that. But obviously, to the extent anyone's doing this, try not to be rude, because then we get these stories that come out and then everyone in the reselling community gets kind of smeared with this same message. And I'm not going to play it here. If you want to go to the article, you can. This is a former Starbucks worker who is basically going off with profanity against resellers. She literally uses the word resellers numerous times. But I do want to give a shout out to a friend of this channel. He's been on before, Carrie from American Arbitrage. He's got an amazing TikTok page by that name. I'll link to it down below if you haven't gone there. But he's quoted in the article and talking about this, and takes a balanced perspective. But they actually show a little video clip from his TikTok, which I want to share with you because he shows himself going out and sourcing some Starbucks items. So let's go see what he found here.
Two of my favorite items to look out for at the thrift store are Starbucks and Christmas items. These are Starbucks Christmas bags. They're in great condition and they're only $1.99 a piece. I picked up both of these and I'm going to sell them together on eBay and should get $15 to $20 plus shipping.
Now, this is a story that comes from Singapore, but I still find it interesting because you got to be careful. Okay, there's a reseller that was fined $20,000 for trying to bribe store employers for information on on limited edition releases of discounted sneakers. Well, this particular guy had made $29,000 in profits from reselling a pair of Nike shoes. So he got hooked, and then he was, greed takes over, and so he's trying to bribe these Foot Locker, assistant managers, with multi-thousand-dollar offers and stuff to try to get, a heads up on these sneakers, get information, get them to put it aside and all that type of stuff. So he got in a lot of trouble. And so you just got to be careful about that type of stuff, that you're just not crossing ethical lines and boundaries to try to get a heads up. So that brings me to Eric Clapton, who was in the news a few times this week for going after one person who had purchased, actually, it was her husband who had purchased what he claims and she claims not to have known at the time was a bootlegged CD of one of his live performances. So if you don't know, you're not supposed to list bootlegged CDs or any other kind of bootleg recordings onto eBay. And so what happened is this person, that's what they did. They put this bootleg CD on eBay for only, and this isn't another country's currency, but I'm just going to say $9.95 because that's what it says there. Well, Eric Clapton went after the woman, and she wound up losing the case and then owed about $3,000 or whatever the equivalent of that would be in, the foreign currency there. And so Eric Clapton was really, torn to shreds in the press. And so he decided ultimately not to go forward and try to collect on the judgment. But I do want to point something out. Say what you want about Eric Clapton, but if somebody sends you a letter, be it a cease and desist letter or some letter telling you that you have something that's illegal and it looks like they might come after you legally, don't respond by saying, feel free to file a lawsuit if you insist on the demands. And so they were like, okay, like, you're not leaving us any choice. Now, this again gets into some controversial stuff here because this is a Canadian story, because it has to do with Ontario saying that they're going to track down people and fine them significantly for reselling COVID tests. So I mean, they're gonna come after people. And so, the fines are pretty significant. If you look over here, break it down. Let's see here. Fine for an individual caught reselling the test for an unfair price. So it's not reselling them, period. It's reselling them for an unfair price. So it has to do with price gouging. $750. If it's a person who gets summoned to court and convicted, that fine could go all the way up to $100,000. Company directors could face a fine of $500,000, and corporations could be slapped with a $10 million fine if convicted. So they're not messing around, and stuff like that could eventually happen in the United States. I mean, you've got to be careful with price gouging. This is something that came up in the beginning of the pandemic. It's one thing to offer something for fair market value when it's something that is in demand and it's something that's considered a necessity. But once things start getting jacked up at crazy prices, that's where trouble starts to happen. The next thing in the news has to do with an eBay story and e-commerce bites. There was an interview with the CEO, and the A question that was asked is eBay driving off small sellers? And the reason that this question was asked is because eBay has had a more recent shift in policy in which they're explicitly going after high volume sellers or high value sellers that are selling things that are very expensive. So they're selling things like high priced watches, high priced sneakers, high priced purses. That's who eBay is targeting now. And those are the types of clientele that they're targeting to try to bring more money into the company, which I can understand on some level. But the question posed to eBay is as followed. I'm going to actually show you the video clip and let me know what you think of the CEO's response to this.
Jamie, in terms of some of the recent strategy changes you've enacted, I know you've been focusing on the sort of top 20% of sellers who in fact generate the top 75% of GMV, and I can understand why you would, given those statistics. But at the same time, has that had an effect of driving some smaller sellers to other rival platforms like Etsy?
No, one of the beauties of eBay is a brand new seller could sell alongside a larger seller. And you can get up on the platform really easily and start selling. In fact, we recently put out a report that 84% of people started selling on eBay because they needed extra income during the pandemic. And another 14% did so because they lost their job. And eBay's had a big impact on individuals during this pandemic, and especially women who 80% of them turned to eBay during some financial or other hardship. So no, it's been a great opportunity for people to bring products that they have onto the platform, get started. And in fact, most of our small businesses started as what I call an accidental entrepreneur. They sold a couple things because they needed some help financially or wanted to get rid of items in the house, and then they turned that into a small business on the platform.
All right. Now, I don't disagree with what he just said there, but my problem with the way this whole thing was communicated and put out there in the press is that when you tell people that eBay is going to focus on these high dollar items, it does indirectly make small sellers, people who people who sell lower dollar items, $20 items, $10 items, $30 items, feel like that eBay doesn't really care about them that much. I know that there's that perception that's out there. So my advice to eBay, again, is to improve the messaging on this type of stuff. Get someone in there who is really good at communicating to the smaller sellers to let them know explicitly that while, yes, we understand it makes sense for you to target that type of higher dollar market, you also have to make sure that you're making your smaller dollar sellers feel valued. Now, let me know down below in the comment section if you feel that eBay's focus on this has pushed you off of the platform. I did poll people on this in my Facebook group, the Facebook Reselling Resource Center, and I'll show you the results right here. This is a poll from earlier today. Has eBay caused you to leave the platform due to its focus on high volume sellers? Their CEO says no. What about you? The vast majority of people, including myself, said nope, I'm staying. In terms of people that said yes, it pushed them off the platform, there were only 3 people who voted yes. So this article goes on to talk about, this is an NPR article, that if you look at the annual return on Legos, the average percentage return on investment over a year period would be 11%. That is slightly over, not significantly, but slightly over the average annual return of gold, believe it or not, between 1971 and 2019. So that's absolutely amazing. And keep in mind that these are averages. So there are some Lego sets that you could get and return on investment will be 700%. So I invested in a lot of Lego sets this year, and it's something that I would suggest as well. There's YouTube sites dedicated to doing Lego sourcing like that for investment. So, definitely go, do your investigating. There's websites dedicated to it as well. So something to keep on the radar for 2022. Now, this is something I want you to know about, very important for eBay. People who use eBay is that they are going to be collecting social security numbers from sellers if you have not already given them your social security number and your sales reach $600. So that's beginning in January 2022. You're either going to have to give that, or you're going to have to give your tax identification number. And that's because of the new tax laws that start in 2022 that are going to require eBay and other online marketplaces to issue a 1099-K form to sellers who receive $600 or more in gross payments. I mentioned earlier there was some information about a scam I wanted you to be aware of, and I want you to pass this information on to any elderly relatives that you have as well, because those are the individuals who are most prone to being victimized by these types of scams. You get a suspicious text that looks like it's from USPS, and it says that they have a wrong address and they're asking for more money to ship an order. Lots of people fall victim to that, but as it mentions in this article, the Postal Service will never text a customer requesting any type of payment, nor to verify customers' personal information. If you get messages like that, contact the Postal Inspection Service. That they basically serve as the post office police. And the last thing, just to end off with a little lightheartedness, holiday gifts this year are more likely to come from a thrift store. Let me know if you gave anyone this year a thrifted gift, or if you received a thrifted gift this year. I haven't, but I'm curious if you have. According to Mercari's report, 77% of polled adults shared that they were likely to buy at least one secondhand item this year. Now, I asked people in my Facebook group, would you be okay with receiving a thrifted gift for the winter holidays? The vast majority of people, 267 votes came in for yes. Some people said depends what it is, which is where I would fall. So I'm going to put my vote there for that. Some people said the thought counts, and no, well, two people said no. Two people said no. Let me know where you're on it. That's it, everyone. Let me know what you thought of the news stories, and if you would like this series to continue. I'm just kind of experimenting with some new stuff, so I hope you liked it. And if you did like it, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you back at the next video, everyone. Take care.